I wanted to talk about several different eating disorders today and really go into how to quit once and for all, how to stop binge eating. This is a video I have been praying about for literally months. I have been doing a lot of research, reading books. I've had Zoom calls with like eating disorder specialists. So I wanted to start off this video by praying super quick because this is a super hard topic to talk about and to carry with wisdom and with empathy and all the things, because I never want to lead someone in the wrong direction with their disordered eating or anything like that. So I'm going to start off with a word of prayer and then kind of speak on some of my experience with this disordered eating habit. Jesus, thank you so much for all of these girls or guys watching. Thank you so much for my experience, Lord Jesus, and just everything you taught me through it and all the self-discipline I was able to learn and just the empathy and compassion that you've given me for people who do struggle with this. And yeah, I just pray for these people watching, Lord Jesus, that anything they hear from this video or from the books I recommend and things like that, that they would really just get wisdom, motivation to give up these past habits and just kind of like addictions that they struggle with. And I pray that you would just break free girls and boys today who struggle with binge eating disorder, Lord Jesus, because it is horrible and it is not fun and it is not what you have planned for us. And we just pray against whatever the enemy is trying to do in our lives through this captivity, through those chains would be broken off, and healing. We just pray healing over this whole video, Lord Jesus. Healing, healing, healing. You're healing like only you can over these people who struggle like I used to, and just thank you so much for healing me, and please heal them. And yeah, just give me the words to say that people need to hear. Amen. Okay, so first of all, if you're here, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to hear what I have to say about this. I've been posting a good bit on my like health Instagram and on my main Instagram. I kind of started opening up a couple months ago about how I struggled, especially freshman, sophomore year of college, and I wanted to talk about several different eating disorders today and really go into how to quit once and for all, how to stop binge eating, because it is a form of disordered eating and people often just think they are a glutton or they just eat too much and just have something wrong with them, and they don't realize that it's something they can actually fix and get help for. So we're going to go into that, but I wanted to start off real quick by differentiating some eating disorders because people get very confused. We're going to start off with anorexia. Is one of the more commonly talked about eating disorders. Most people know what it is. You basically starve yourself and you do not eat. You don't eat because you want to be skinny and you're terrified of food and you don't want food. Food is the thing you absolutely want to avoid, in the sense of like you're afraid of eating it and you're not going to do that. You're trying to be as skinny as possible, and it is totally different from binge eating in the sense that binge eating is a form, in some ways, sometimes, a form of the eating disorder bulimia, which is also talked about a good bit when anorexia is talked about and things as well. But bulimia is normally talked about in the sense of binging and purging. And I think people just automatically assume like the purging, like throwing up your food right after you eat it, with the bulimic side of things. And I just want to go ahead and clarify that bulimia is not just someone who eats and then throws up their food. Bulimia is someone who struggles with binging and then purges in some way, shape, or form after that binge. And so purging could mean restricting the entire next day. It could mean exercising for a very long time the next day. It could be eating insanely clean the next day. You're in some way making up for your binge the day before or the morning of or whatever. Bulimia is binge and then purge. Purge does not always mean throw up in this case. And then lastly, a binge eating disorder, if it's not at all coupled with bulimia and there's no purge involved, it is simply the binge, and there is no trying to fix it afterwards. It is just someone who struggles with the urge to eat a high amount of calories at one time, and we'll go way more into that later, but someone who struggles with binging and then definitely probably struggles with guilt and things afterwards, but continues to binge and binge time after time, and there's no purge involved. So a lot of times this is something that leads to obesity, but not in all cases. And this is what I wanted to clarify. Someone who does struggle with binge eating disorder does not have to be a large human being. I think people automatically couple the word binging with someone who is very overweight and just doesn't care. Normally the people who struggle with this really do care and really do want to nip it in the butt and stop struggling with it, no matter if they weigh a lot or a little, or if they're a healthy weight or not. Now that we've kind of clarified what the different eating disorders are, I want to go into a little bit of my story with how I started struggling with binging. At the time, I had absolutely no idea what was happening. I didn't think about any of the science or anything that was going on in my brain. I was just miserable with the way I saw my body, with my circumstances regarding to running and injuries and trying to be a successful runner in college and towards the end of high school. But recently, as I've kind of been quote unquote studying, doing research, praying over what to do and say in this video, I stumbled upon a different YouTube video that talked about a book by Katherine Hansen called Brain Over Binge. And I listened to it on Audible over a course of a couple days and was just like, wow, this is such a tool for people who do struggle with this disorder, because it really does talk a lot about the science of your brain and how to tell yourself, I don't need to run to the fridge to get that food, and I'm not going to right now. And I would definitely recommend listening or reading to that book if, which we're gonna go more into this later, if you really do struggle with this, because I think I'd recommended the book to someone who like kind of had opened up to me, like a close friend, not just someone on social media, but someone had opened up to me about really struggling and like being afraid of themselves and binging late at night. And I was like, listen to this book and just see what you think, see if it helps you at all, like offered some of my own advice coupled with that. And they started listening to it, and it was kind of just a disappointment and like made them even more afraid of themselves to listen to, because she had a very severe struggle with binge eating and bulimia. And not everyone's struggle is as intense as others, and sometimes hearing a more intense story can make you fearful that yours will turn out this way. And I just want to say, whether yours is far more intense than my story or less intense than my story, or far more intense, less intense than Katherine's, if you decide to listen to that book, or both of our names are Katherine, so it's kind of confusing probably, but Katherine Hansen is the author of Brain Over Binge, and I'm Katherine here with this channel. And anyways, so my story, I just don't want you to compare it and feel like you're gonna stumble into this if you struggle with the same injuries and things that I did. I'm not speaking that over you, and your story is your story, and your strength is your strength, and you're gonna ask God for help and figure it out. So don't compare, and don't think you're gonna become like anyone you hear. I'm just offering my advice from my story. So basically, I was really successful cross country and track runner, like top 30 in the nation by my sophomore year of high school, like killing it, crushing it. And then started to struggle with injuries my spring of my sophomore year, just a cascade effect of injury after injury after injury. And I'll just skip to the end, spoil it for you. I basically dealt with injuries. Like I would finally come back from one, get fast again, and then just rip something else, tear something else, hurt something else for like 6 years. And so it was definitely a constant cycle of that. And after about 2 years, I just remember slowly but surely slipping into this less is more mentality, which goes with like the anorexia side almost, which I never had anorexia. I'm not claiming that. I'm just saying I did have a more of a restrictive mindset. So I don't remember really counting calories and stuff until end of my freshman year of college, but definitely just trying to eat as little of my lunch as I possibly could that my mom packed me, or totally skipping breakfast and just having coffee until like 11 a.m. And as an athlete, especially like a growing athlete in high school and stuff, yes, I was cross-training and not running as much, but I needed to be eating a lot more than I was probably. And I remember one day I wanted to skip dinner or something. I just wasn't feeling it, wasn't having a great day with the injuries and doctors and stuff. And my mom was like, walked to my room and she was like, nah, we're not doing this. We already have so many doctors struggling with these injuries. We're not doing eating disorder too. And she just like walked in and dragged me downstairs to dinner. And kind of from that day on was like a wake-up call of like, an eating disorder is a real thing, and sometimes our parents or people's moms can feed into that eating disorder. So I'm so sorry for anyone where that is the case, because I know a lot of people that is the case, and I've spoken personally with friends and girls who have struggled with family situations like that, so I'm sorry. But slowly but surely, kind of like my end of my senior year going into college, I started to kind of notice like sometimes I would eat like 10 cookies and I would really want to not eat any more cookies. Like we'd just all be watching a movie or like whatever, like my family. I would kind of still be battling injuries, so trying to get back to race weight, trying to lose a little bit of weight to get super fit again for running. And I didn't think too much of it. I was just like, dang, like I'm never gonna like get to my like skinny race speed again. Like it wasn't necessarily about looks at that point. It was more so about like getting in shape for running. And anytime I was like not injured for a long time, I was getting fast again, it would slowly but surely backpedal and get better. And I wouldn't find myself like eating weird amounts of something at a time. And so once again, I didn't think too much about it until I ended up tearing my left labral, which is like your hip socket cartilage, the end of my fall season at Baylor. And then that Christmas to spring season is where, when I look back and I've done research and I know like what bulimia and BED, I know what they are, and I was very close to having that. And so I'm kind of going to go into some of those stories just to see if you can relate, and to kind of go into like the severity of like, this is BED, this is just I overate, you know, because there's definitely a difference. And I don't want someone to claim like, I have a binge eating disorder. Like I'm not even fully coming out and saying like I had a binge eating disorder. I'm saying I struggled with these disordered eating patterns because I was never clinically diagnosed and wasn't put in a clinical setting. And so I just don't want anyone to jump to conclusions and say like that they are this and this is their struggle and they just, you know, have to live with that, when really like it's just like, oh, I ate 2 pieces of pie on Thanksgiving, I'm so full. Like, no, you don't have a binge eating disorder. You're fine, girl. That's just overeating. Just, you know, maybe eat a little less next time and it's okay. So anyways though, kind of over the holidays, as I couldn't run again, and I had already torn this right labral in high school, so I knew how bad and how long I was about to be out from running. I think it was just a lot for me to take in, of like being home, all the holiday foods in my face, like, because you do gain weight fairly quickly when you go from running 60, 70 miles a week to like not running at all, even if you're able to cross train some. And so kind of just slipping into like, I had gained a couple pounds. I knew I was about to have to go back to Texas, where I was 14 hours away from my family in Atlanta, and I would be lonely and my teammates were traveling without me, and like I just kind of knew I was about to be entering back into that. And I think there was so much like anxiety and like control over those thoughts and feelings about shame in my body and the way it looked and wanting to run again and being sad about that, that I would in some ways run to food for comfort, I think. And I remember definitely over that Christmas break kind of slip in, I feel like, worse at night, because you don't really want to do something like this in front of people. Every case is different. But I remember like my family would all go to sleep and I would just be laying in bed and like have this urge to go downstairs and like get a snack, or like urge to go downstairs and get whatever holiday cake or food was left over, and like I'd be like, okay, like I'll just get a piece of toast, or you know, whatever, like get my snack. And then it would just be like that wasn't enough, so I'd go down for another, or like come back up with 3 and then eat it all. And sometimes it would be like granola bars and like stuff that wasn't even good, that I didn't even really want to eat. I knew I wasn't hungry really, like I just had a big meal with my family. So that's kind of when it started to be like, I'm kind of struggling with something here, but I don't really know what it is. And once again, even until I read Katherine's book a little while ago, I wasn't even really sure about what it was. I just knew that I was struggling my freshman year. So I get back to Baylor, and I know I have to transfer because of injuries and just a lot of reasons. Like I loved Baylor, so I don't want anyone to think anything bad about it. I loved it so much. It just wasn't where the Lord had for me for the rest of my college experience, so I ended up transferring. But I remember that spring semester, I had amazing roommates, but they were all on the team too. And so everyone in my life, like running is like your sorority, like your team, your collegiate like sports team is like your sorority, like it's your friends, it's just who your community is. And I didn't do a good enough job at Baylor of making friends outside of the team or getting involved in my church community and stuff like that. So really my teammates were my only friends, and when they were traveling, and at a school like Baylor where it's super competitive and you're traveling all the time, you'll go to like New York or California for like 3-4 days at a time, because you get there 2 days before your event, you're flying all the day after, like you're just there a long time. So there would be weeks where I was home with my roommates for 2 days, and the rest of the week I was alone because they were all traveling and I was supposed to be too, but couldn't because of my hip injury. And so I think that's really when I started to really struggle with this, because when you're alone, if you struggle, you know, you're kind of really terrified of being alone. And so I'm just gonna give 1 or 2 examples of like episodes that I had, even though there were tons of them. I'm not gonna go into detail of all of them. But I remember one time after weights, I don't remember if I was like upset about the way my body looked or really what triggered it, but I ate like a ton of granola bars in the bathroom, and we had to weigh ourselves, and there was probably a bunch of triggering things in there, but I just remember like being in the bathroom and like kind of like crying and just like stuffing down granola bars, and like I did not want the freaking granola bar. Like I didn't want to, but with binge eating, it's like a weird urge, and it is like an addiction. Like your brain says like, I need this now, go get this now, and you act upon it or you don't. And it's kind of like obviously different, but someone who has alcoholism, like you don't think you can like control the urge. Like you don't think you have the power to say no to it until you realize you do. And so that's kind of how it was with just this constant cycle. Remember one night my roommates were, I think it was conference weekend at track, and they won, and it was super exciting, and everyone was posting about everything. And we all know social media is the comparison king, queen, whatever you want to call it. I remember I had like one of those huge like gallon or whatever, like Bluebell, if you know what I'm talking about. Maybe I'll put a picture here or whatever. It's a lot of freaking ice cream, and Bluebell like cookies and cream was the flavor I had. And I remember I got it or whatever, and like I had a cup, and then I had another cup, and then another cup, and I ended up eating a lot of this ice cream. And I remember this was either the first or second time I had tried to make myself, once again trigger warning, exit the video if you're getting uncomfortable, try to induce myself to vomit. And I praise God, and I'm so thankful, like I would cry talking about, I'm so thankful like I wasn't able to make myself throw up, which like not everyone is. And like Katherine talks about that in her book too, how like she wasn't really able to like make herself throw up, so her purging was in the form of exercising, which was kind of the same for me. I would get like elliptical or go on a long walk the next day and try to like, or not eat most of the next day, and that would just lead to another binge. But I remember this night I tried to make myself purge over and over and over and over again, and I couldn't. And then I just felt so ashamed of myself and so fat and so alone, and just like I would never be fast again, and just so bad about myself. I remember just like crying and like letting God hold me, and just like praying and like missing home and like crying myself to sleep. My roommates were still gone like the next 2 days after that. I woke up the next day and I ate more of the ice cream, and I binged again. And basically within 24 hours, less than 24 hours, this whole tub, massive tub of ice cream was gone. Sorry, a fly keeps flying around my apartment. But this massive tub of ice cream is gone within 24 hours or less. And I mean, I had probably eaten other meals and stuff in there too, I don't remember. But I just remember, like, I have no idea how many calories that even is. That was really like a breaking point of like, I am disgusting. Like that thought in my mind, like, what is wrong with me? Like something is wrong with me. Like, what is it? Like, what is wrong with me? Just, which I feel like if you struggle with this disorder or these patterns, that's kind of how you feel, because it's not talked about. It is more and more being talked about, and I think it will continue to be. But it's just not as talked about as like bulimia and anorexia and the more common eating disorders, even though this is actually, if you look at statistics, the most common eating disorder. And so it should be talked about more, but it's just not always, because it's not one of the like classic ones. Anyways, I'll tell one more kind of like story just to give some perspective, and then go into some of what Katherine Hansen talks about in her book and the way that I ended up stopping the binging episode. One more episode was, I remember still with this left hip injury, I remember one time I was, if you don't know what an Ultra-G is, it's an anti-gravity treadmill. They're a very expensive piece of equipment, but basically like you're running on a treadmill, but there's like a big bubble thing. I'll try to put a picture of it or something here for perspective, even though it doesn't really matter for the story. But anyways, I had like my long run at Baylor scheduled to run on the Ultra-G, and I got in there and I put it on like a low percentage of, like you can decide like 90% of your body weight, 60%, like however injured you are, you run on like less percentage. So I think I put it on like 90, 95, because that's kind of, if you're training, you're supposed to have it somewhere higher so it's similar to your actual body weight. And my hip was just hurting so bad, I couldn't even get through like a mile. And so then I bumped it down to like 60, like super low, and just still like even just movement of like hardly any of my body weight, but just moving my hips trying to run. My left hip, the one that I had just torn, was in so much pain. And so I ended up not being able to run more than like a mile, and I had binged the night before, so I was like, I have to purge, like I have to get in my 11 miles. Like if I don't like burn a ton of calories right now, I'm gonna feel even worse from the night before and then binge again, and then I'm gonna be fat and I'm never gonna get better, and just this cycle. And I was the only one in the training room that day. I don't remember if it was just super early or if people were out of town, but we had snacks and stuff in the training room. And I remember, I don't know if you guys know, at like these honey stinger like waffle, they're like little energy granola things, whatever. I remember grabbing 9 of them and going back out to my car, and I ate all of them, just like sobbing in my car. And that's just kind of another reminder for you of like how binge eating is, once again, like the time I described when we had to weigh ourselves after weight training, when I just ate the granola bars in the bathroom. Like, it's not really a controlled thing. Like, I wasn't hungry after my 0.5 mile run on the Ultra G where I didn't get to do my 11 miles. Like, I knew I didn't need those energy bar things. I was just upset because I was mad at myself from the night before. I was ashamed of what I looked like. I was upset I couldn't run and do the thing that I loved, and so I was coping with it in the way my body had been trained to cope with it, which was eat a massive amount of calories until I get this certain dopamine rush, and then I'm done, and then I feel horrible and guilty and crash, and then restrict and do it all over again. And so those are just a couple of the stories of the like bigger stories I remember. There's definitely a lot more sleepless nights, tear-filled nights, and things around that subject, but I just wanted to share those stories kind of for perspective for someone who's wondering, like, do I have this? Do I not have this? And after sharing my experience a little bit, I want to jump into how I quit binge eating, which I feel like that's the reason all you guys are here. If you do struggle with this, and or if you realize like, no, I just actually overeat, I don't actually struggle with this, I'm not that severe. Okay, great, good, because it will be a lot easier for you to quit than the people who really struggle with this like addictive pattern. But either way, I think what I'm about to say can help someone who overeats sometimes or someone who really binges. So basically at the time, once again, I hadn't read any books on it. I hadn't really realized what it even was or anything like that. I just knew I didn't like the way I was. I was transferring schools from Baylor to Stanford University at the time. And so at that time, I was kind of in full freak out mode of like, I can't weigh this much. I can't be like this when I get to my new school. I have to start like a new name for myself. I have to like be rid of these injuries and do the best I can, be the best me I can. God will give me the strength. I can do this. And there were definitely a lot of times, especially when I was still in Texas. Once I got home for the summer, things honestly progressively got a lot better, and I think that's really where my healing was, because I was with my family who would hold me accountable and who would see me and know what I was doing. Versus when I was at school, once again, alone so much, it was so hard to hold myself accountable because it was really just me. And my roommates, I definitely never opened up to about it or anything, not because they weren't amazing, they were. I love them all so much. It was just something I like kept very to myself because I was ashamed of it. I've had to make this decision of, I am a disciplined person. I've always been described as diligent and disciplined. Literally, I would always think like, what is the D word people used to describe me like? And I'm pretty sure it was either disciplined or diligent. I think it was diligent, but both kind of go together. And I was like, I'm a strong person. I was a Foot Locker national finalist. I worked my freaking butt off to be as fast as I was in the past, and I want to be fast again. I want to get rid of these injuries, and I want to overcome this, so I'm going to. So every day, it is the weirdest thing how hard it is to deny an urge that you're used to just giving into. It is so freaking hard. And I remember like just so many nights like trying to not like give into a binge. Like I would still eat like healthy meals, like a big salad with meat and avocado and great stuff. I definitely was always on the side of like still wanting to feed my body, so I wasn't like trying to slip into an anorexic pattern when trying to overcome this binge eating, if that makes sense. And that's what I really want to emphasize that we don't need to do in this video. Once I got home for the summer though, got in this habit of just like being disciplined again. And I would lay in bed and have those urges and know my whole family was asleep and know I could go down there and no one would see me and no one would see me binging or whatever. but I got better and better. There were definitely some times where I would still go down and like get something to eat, but I think I was better about it just being like maybe a second dessert or like a yogurt bowl, like choosing something and not binging on it. Like still sometimes letting myself have like a snack or whatever when that urge would come, but not at all acting on it in the same way where it's like a snack, a toast, a granola bar, a cup of ice cream, like everything you can think of, because that's how it ends when you're binging. Like you just feel like you have to eat so much. And I think sometimes that could come from those of us who did start a restrictive pattern in high school. The reason we like take on that binging is because our bodies were trying to develop things, but we prevented them from some of the calories they needed, so they went into a constant starvation mode. So that's why we started the binging in the first place, and then you starve yourself again after the binging, and it just continues the cycle forever and ever and ever. How you basically stop it is, which is going to be different for everyone, but I believe this really can help anyone who's struggling with this. You can't go into total like, well, I'm just going to eat less, nip it in the butt. No, your body needs food, your body needs nutrients, and if you just totally decide, I'm going to just eat 1,000 calories a day for 3 months, I'll lose all the weight that I got from binging, and I'll be rid of this and it'll be better. No, you will slip right back into either you'll be anorexic or you'll slip right back into your binge eating habits, because your body has been in starvation mode once again. So you have to get down a healthy routine of a healthy balanced diet, which that looks different for everyone once again, but you know the drill. Greens, proteins, carbs, more natural stuff than processed stuff, but still balance in there. Like even when I was overcoming all this, there was definitely a lot of discipline in the foods I ate and stuff. But I would still have ice cream sometimes, or pizza, or sushi, or whatever I wanted, you know, but like not all the time. And if there was a certain time I was alone, or I knew something might lead to binging, like I'm picking the healthy snack, because like if this is gonna lead me to binge or whatever, if I'm gonna feel bad and then want more, whatever, I'm not gonna do that. So it was just a slow progression of discipline after discipline after discipline, and eventually I got much better at saying, it's after dinner and I actually am a little hungry, so I'm gonna make like a yogurt parfait, healthy, protein-filled snack, because I know I have to run in the morning and I don't want to feel like crap. So I'm going to do my best to feel the best that I can for tomorrow, and we're going to do that. And then after the yogurt bowl, I'm content, because I know I'm full and I don't need anything else. Versus before, I wouldn't let myself have it, and I would just slip into this whole like everyone's asleep, I must have now because my body's hungry, and freak out mode. Once again, when I like did all that, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just really wanting to get better and be disciplined again and not feel so disgusting about myself. And so about a month or two ago, when I read Katherine's book and started doing research for this video, it was wild to me to hear how she quit her like habits around this eating disorder, because it was very, 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 very similar to mine. I just didn't quite know all of the science to back up what I was telling myself to do. I was just telling myself, you're a disciplined person. People have always used this D word, diligent, disciplined, whichever it is, to describe you, and you're gonna act on that and you're gonna be that. And I told myself that, and I was like, you can do this, when I was laying in bed and wanted to go get the food or whatever, like, you can do this, you're not gonna do that, you are not that, and telling myself that. Versus Katherine, I think one of the books she read is like AA something to do with giving up addictions and people who struggle with alcoholism and stuff like that. And it ended up helping her a lot, because he talked about the two different like levels or types of your brain. So basically you have your upper and your lower brain, which is your animal and your human brain. And so your animal brain is the one that has like your drives, like your needs, like your sex drive, your hunger, your thirst, like the things you need, like sleep, like what your body needs. And then your human brain is the one that decides, yes, I need water, I am thirsty, I will drink water, I will go to the Brita, pour it, and drink the water. I will go get a salad at Whole Foods because I am hungry. You know, that is my will. That is where people with anorexia know they have that need for food, but they decide to not act on that need for food because they want something else, and that becomes more the will that they give into, if that makes sense. But with binge eating, I hear I need food, and my body's natural response is to go get the food, because yes, that's good and that's a healthy, balanced lifestyle. But my body, since it had that restrictive phase and then into starvation, whatever, and then into binging, and that became the pattern, when that urge to binge, need-based, became something that when I wasn't actually hungry, was pushed as a need for my body, because it was so used to it, you know? And it was so used to me like binging and restricting and binging and restricting, that it was always in starvation mode, even though I was eating way more calories than I needed, if that makes sense. And so this lower brain is saying you need to binge. But my upper brain decides if I go to the fridge and binge, or if I go to the grocery store to get the big Bluebell thing of ice cream, if I know it's not gonna be the best decision for me because I might binge. Because this is saying you need to binge. The desire, the need, because it has become a habit in your life, is here. This need-based brain, your lower brain, is saying, I need this now. Your upper brain, your human brain, your discipline and your diligence and your willpower is the one that decides to go to the fridge, decides to go to the store, and decides to act on that. And I know it's hard because it is a form of addiction, but you have the power to say, I'm not going to the fridge tonight. I'm not going to the fridge tonight. And it's as easy as that. And that's how Katherine talks about in her book, once she finally hit for her. I think she was like babysitting or something. And I'm totally gonna have her book linked in the description so you can go buy it. But once again, take it with a grain of salt. You probably are not as severe as her case, because her case was very severe, but you might be worse, you never know. So I just don't want you to think you're gonna become like that, because you're not going to, and it's okay. But she talked about how, kind of after she had read this book on like Alcohol Anonymous or addictions and stuff, how she was babysitting this girl and everyone was like not at the house but her, and she'd eaten dinner, she was full, and she was sitting on the couch getting the urge to binge. And she could have gone and opened the pantry and just freaking went for it. Like, their pantry was stocked, no one was home, no one would have known, which if you are someone who struggles with this, you know that's prime time. No one's gonna know you ate their Oreos because there's 2 things of it. No one's gonna know that half the cereal's gone because it was full but still open. No one's gonna know. That is the prime time thing, because if you struggle with that shame, then the shame is the #1 thing that holds you back from binging. And if there's no shame involved because no one's gonna know, then it doesn't matter, you just go for it, you know? And so that's the way you think. But then once you decide, I don't want this anymore, I hate the way this makes me feel, I know it's not good for my health, for my blood pressure, for all the, you know, all the things. So you have this desire. I'm sitting on the couch by myself. My husband's not here right now as I'm making this video. If I still struggled with that, I might would have the urge to eat like everything in our fridge, but thank God I don't. And I believe that you can get healing from that too. So say that you're sitting on the couch right now, you're getting this urge to binge, your lower brain is saying, I need to binge right now. I want you to think about what you've eaten today. Okay, let's see what I've eaten today. I had granola and Chobani Greek yogurt parfait this morning for breakfast. And then I had some leftover salad and some fried eggs for lunch. And then I had a snack of a granola bar, and it's like 3 or 4 o'clock. So that's plenty of food for me. I haven't exercised yet today. I'm full. I don't need anything else to eat. I'm happy. So sorry, over here, this thing that's telling me to binge, I don't need to binge. So upper brain is telling lower brain, sorry, we're not binging. We don't need to eat right now. But if I still struggled with it and I didn't know that I had the power to say no to that desire, then I could have lower brain here say you need to binge. Oh yeah, Casey's not here. I'm alone, no one would know. Goes to the fridge, feels horrible afterwards, and then the whole cycle repeats itself. So I know I'm not some licensed therapist, some nutritionist, or anything like that, but I am someone who cares about you. I'm looking into the camera and I care about you, whether I know who you are, whether I'll ever see you again, whether you comment or like or subscribe or whatever the heck you do. I want you to not struggle with this anymore, because it is horrible. And the guilt you feel afterwards, and the shame, and the joy that the enemy just steals from your life, it's horrible, and it's not the way that God intended us to live. We're not going to be able to live out our full potential if we continue to struggle with this guilt and this shame over our bodies and ourselves and this continuous pattern. So basically, my best piece of advice is to realize you're disciplined and diligent and God made you that way. And 2, read Katherine's book if you really think that you struggle with this. And 3, if you are someone who just overeats and you're like, I don't really understand the like binge patterns you're talking about. I don't necessarily have the urge to eat that much. I just eat an extra piece of pie or whatever, or a whole bag of chips on accident when I get home from work. That's not binging, and I don't want you to take on this persona of, oh, I have this same thing that Katherine and Katherine have, and I'm basically gonna end up doing this, and no, that's not what I'm saying. No matter who you are, your story is different than me and Katherine Hansen's, which if you listen to the book, then hopefully it helps you. But I just want you to take everything with a grain of salt that I say, that she says, and know that we do have advice to offer you because we've walked through this, but also know that our story is not yours, in the sense that your struggle doesn't have to be as intense as ours, and if your struggle is more intense than ours, and you are having a hard time, you still can figure this out. You still can overcome it. God is with you. God will give you the strength, and that's what I did. I just asked him for strength, discipline, diligence to overcome that urge every single day. And I know this is like not really like, some of you may have come to this video thinking like, after I watch this, I won't struggle with this anymore. And hopefully that's the case. Hopefully you man up and you say, I'm putting on my armor today. I am not getting in. If you need a good devotional, if you're a Christian watching this, get Priscilla Shire's Armor of God Devo. She talks a lot about how to put on the armor of God and like what each piece means and how we do that, truth, righteousness, peace, all the different things. And I think that could really help with the concept like this where you're having a mental struggle because you realize you're strong through putting on that armor of God. But either way, I just want to emphasize that I'm for you, God is for you, and there is a way out, and you have a way out, and you just have to choose it. It's very different than anorexia and other disordered eating, and I'm praying for you, I'm rooting for you. I'm so praying that this video helps girls, that my little bit of experience I shared helps you feel relatable and related to, and like you're not alone, because this is something a lot of people struggle with, and I think a lot of people need healing from, and I'm praying that this video can bring at least one of you some healing from it, and some drive to really go after the strength, the perseverance, and the diligence God has given you. So yeah, love you guys so much. Thank you for watching.